Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from any time zone and parts across the world you're joining us from. You're welcome. I want to kick this off by saying a very big thank you to the amazing girls and young feminist leaders who have accepted to be part of this panel discussion to mark the International Women's Day. My friends, you're welcome. In Sierra Leone, we say, "Mi padi, you're welcome." For ages, we all know that girls have been organizing, working together and advocating for themselves and also for others. In a difficult period like this, when the world is battling the corona pandemic, girls are at the forefront organizing, but most times we don't get to see this or hear about this on the mainstream media. Today, we are changing this. Why? Because we are lifting how girls have been organizing in the wake of the pandemic. Their organizing is critical, and it's important for us to put girls at the center of programming as well as funding. Joining me today for this chat are activists and girls who are recipients of the Global Resilience Fund, and that's the collective response to the COVID-19 crisis by social justice funders. It's intended to support girls and young women activists with rapid funds at this watershed moment. And also we have recipients from the Women for Girls Awards, another collective of flexible funding for feminists that is resourcing the resistance of girls and their allies. These collective grants are housed at Purposeful, and Purposeful is the feminist African-rooted global hub for girls activism. My name is Josephine Camara, and I am going to be your host. I am a girl rights activist and an advocacy lead for Purposeful in Sierra Leone. Without wasting much time, I will give the opportunity to my amazing panelists to introduce themselves. Joining me from Kenya, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Rose Akinin. I work for the Resource Center for Women and Girls, a non-governmental organization based in Machakos, Kenya. And I look forward to having this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. And from India is?
Hello everyone, I am Meghna, founder of All India Queer Association. It is a queer organization and it's mainly run by queer women in India, and it works all over India. And I'm the first asexual student leader of India. I identify as asexual, and I'm an author. I have authored 2 books, and currently I'm studying gender studies. So that is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. From Sierra Leone.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tere Kuma. I am the founder and team leader for Feminist United Sierra Leone and Allies in Sierra Leone, based in Sierra Leone here. And I'm also a communications professional. And I have a very deep passion for writing too. So basically, Feminist United Sierra Leone and Allies is a movement of young Africans who've come together to challenge the status quo that seeks to deprive equality, rights and opportunities of both sexes. Yeah. So we're embarking on a couple of activities, including sensitization campaigns on social media, and we're also exploring the traditional media because part of what we want to achieve is to regularize the feminism conversation here in Sierra Leone. Yeah.
Wow, thank you very much, Teria. And we have 2 amazing panelists from Palestine.
Hello, everyone. This is Sandy Hanna. I'm founder of Feminist Diaries, and this is an intergenerational group that came together during the pandemic to highlight the injustices against girls and young women, and more importantly, to put on the table concrete and tangible options and recommendations on how we can co-create a feminist world that is just to everyone. The fun part is that we're using arts. This is pretty much it.
Nice, nice. I love art. And Daniela, also from Palestine.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniela Mosul. I'm from Palestine, and I am the founder of Bethlehem Queer Support Groups and Instagram account, which both serve as one of the few online platforms for the Palestinian LGBT community to come together, share experiences, and give support to each other. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All the way from Mongolia. Please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Haranza. I'm from Mongolia, the group named Beautiful Hearts Against Sexual Violence. We're focusing on domestic violence and child sexual abuse, and most importantly, we're providing trauma-informed psychosocial services for young survivors. And you noted that during the pandemic, that our services is alarmingly increased due to the quarantine and lockdown and pandemic. So it's good to connect to all of you online to continuing our activism.
Thank you so much. These brilliant panelists and girl experts will capture their lived experience as girls and young women, and they will share the work that they are leading and the work that girls have done so far in the regions they're representing. And please, I would like to inform you that this panel discussion is a partnership between Purposeful and the Women of the World Foundation. And we're sharing it with our global audience on what girls are doing in the wake of the pandemic. Isn't it exciting? I am so happy to be here with you all. Please feel free. It's going to be a fun conversation. I am very curious to know about the work that you're leading, particularly in this period of the corona pandemic. I want to understand what's the current context of working with girls in your region. So let's start with Sandy. Can you please share, Sandy?
In occupied Palestine, the context is already too much sophisticated before Corona and the pandemic. We live under occupation, and this means occupied lands, occupied people and resources, and this has so much implications on the daily lives of young women and girls. What happens is also we witnessed some current updates on the global order and politics that affected our region and our country in a specific way. If I want to tell you how girls have been affected and how young women have lacked the opportunities and the resources, it's going to be a very long journey on educational, social, political, and economic levels. But I would like to shed the light a little bit on what girls have been doing, how we have been organizing and mobilizing. Actually, this is the first time the virtual world has been very kind to us, where we had more exposure, more connectedness to other activists from across the globe. It has been easier and faster to reach out to more populations, especially marginalized populations in the global south. So the whole solidarity and sisterhood and belonging aspects that we needed to survive this pandemic was there. And this is one positive aspect that I wanted to highlight before we talk about the challenges, which are always more than the positive things. Girls have been disseminating educational materials, distributing hygiene and emergency packages. They have been lobbying for accountability against femicides. They have been organizing art activities in the streets to increase awareness, to advocate. They have been mobilizing on social media. The tools and the magnitude of our work has been huge. But there's one thing that I believe has been overwhelming. It's the fact that we have been fighting alone. Young women and girls have been doing so much work that is still under or even not reported, under-recognized or even unrecognized. And this is part of the problem where we always feel we're under the spotlight to defend why our work is important. We are always asked to argument and to defend why organizing of girls and young women is important, what role it contributes with, and we are always in a defensive position, you know, like we need to highlight our worthiness, we need to highlight our role and why we make a good a contribution to the society. The work that girls and young women have been doing, I think we need to capture that, to highlight it, to put it under documentation efforts, and to be able to report it and recognize it. So in the future, we feel that the ecosystem is working with us and not against us, especially in a context where fundamentalist efforts and anti-gender attacks are increasing day by day. And one last thing is that there's also this challenge, especially uncovered during the pandemic, where activists and feminists are really classified in a sense that they belong to their communities and to the streets only, which means that they are not entitled to official decision-making positions or opportunities or spaces. And I'm saying this because our country now is preparing for presidential and legislative elections, a first that we haven't witnessed in 15 years now. And this prospect of democracy, of hope, of living in dignity is very promising to young women and girls. For me, on a personal level, I'm waiting for this with passion, with eagerness, and although with some doubts, but I'm staying positive that the election is going to happen. And we're just frustrated that girls and young women are not there, not even women. There is no female representation whatsoever.
Wow, thank you so much. That is really in-depth, and I'm curious to know if any of us here have very good example on how young activists, young women can be represented on these kind of tables. Like young women will not only be on the streets, but also be on strategic position where decisions are made, where decision making is happening, and where policies have been shifted. It's very important for us to lead this conversation. I'll come back to you. And some of the things I pick up from your conversation is you really stressed on sisterhood, and really it's very important. We saw that across the world, not only for the patch you are in, but I will also say in Sierra Leone, we saw how young women and girls are working together to show that the sisterhood that we needed, bond that we needed to fight this crisis together is there. This is a clear representation that we've been organizing for many years. But like I said again, and you also reiterate, is that the organization of young women are not properly documented. And this is why we're here, to start documenting this process for us. I want to hear what Rose from Kenya have to say concerning the context of working with girls during this pandemic.
I work for an organization known as the Resource Center for Women and Girls. It's a feminist organization based in a rural area. So we basically work with girls from the marginalized parts of the country. And COVID-19 caused a huge hit on our programs, which acted as a safe space to many young women and girls. So while reaching out to our beneficiaries, some of the things that came out from them was when schools were closed in March by the government, online classes took over, but the government didn't consider the girls were not able to afford internet bundles. This has been a huge challenge to many because many parents prioritize food and other stuffs at the moment rather than bundles and any other thing. So girls were forced, they managed to mobilize other girls and formed small groups to collect an amount of money to cater for their bundles. Another challenge was when COVID hit and there was lockdown, many families were forced to stay together at home. This led to an increase in gender-based violence. There were so many cases reported of the same. Currently, as we can see, young women are standing up for other women, fighting for their voices and speaking on their behalf. In this, women have been able to gather around with other women facing the same challenges and, call a hotline or go to the police reporting the matter. The other item is, as I said, we work with girls from the marginalized parts. And one of the areas we work with still practice FGM and other cultural norms. So education for girls is not a priority. So during such hard times, girls are forced to leave school. Most of them have gotten married, and others are just at home. Most of the beneficiaries we're working with have resisted that and are still going back to school. They meet up during weekends, have their classes there, either through a support from the community elders or chiefs. So I think that's a good thing coming out from the communities. And I feel through our activism and advocacy for young girls' rights to education, that has really come out strong. And it's a tick for the girls themselves, because they're trying to prove to the society they can also stand up and be counted.
Thank you so much, Rose. Very, very happy that you shine light on how young women are standing up for others, and that is very important. I will ask Meghna to just share a little bit with us.
So the pandemic, it has pushed women's rights backwards a lot in India. I have done a research paper on metropolitan women in India recently. So firstly, we started getting a lot of calls from queer people. Then we started noticing that domestic violence was on all-time high in India, and women were, stuck at home. And the lockdown situation in India wasn't very ideal for women, and a lot of women were trying to escape abusive homes. The domestic violence was on all-time high. Queer women specifically had to move back home because India doesn't have a culture of moving out and live away from your parents, from biological parents. So most of the queer people move out, and most of the women move out in the pretext of education. And due to lockdown, they had to go back, and they had to stay with families. A lot of women, especially lesbian women, queer women, were forced to get married, and there was abuse all over. Whether you were a cisgender heterosexual woman, or a homosexual woman, or asexual woman, we were bearing the brunt of it. Apart from that, trans women were bearing the brunt of it. We try to help a lot of people by starting to form a shelter, and we started Empower the Queer project by helping them to move out of their families and move out from their homes, get a job, get therapy, because the laws are very anti-woman. They are not very woman friendly. So women don't opt to even leave abusive marriages. So it became very difficult to help everyone, and gender roles were stronger than ever. I could say that all these 10 years, 20 years worth of work has been pushed back, and we'll have to work harder now to bring up gender neutral roles and gender equality again in India. We have seen it. Women were working from home, but they were also doing the domestic chores. One is having some idea about the double shift phenomena. It was going through that phase, and it was worse for housewives, because the husbands were venting out on them if the husband lost a job, or if the husband got laid off. So they were using women to vent out their frustration, and the violence was an all-time high. And this was the time when divorce inquiries increased, and I am so glad that divorce inquiries increased, because Indian culture doesn't allow women to separate. And for young women, those who are not married, and specifically queer, they had to go back to the closet, and they have to stay in the closet if they are not out to their parents. A lot of people try to came out, and they saw that their parents are forcing them to get married to heterosexual women, and we stopped some of such marriages. The whole situation was pathetic, exhausting, and women were struggling overall. And if I talk about working class women or the domestic workers, they were out of work. They were getting beaten up by their husbands, because we also work in slum areas. So we had to address those issues. We had to go there in the middle of the pandemic. Overall, the situation was severely bad in India.
I'm just very curious to know from Daniela's perspective, because she's also working on this particular issue. What support from your end have you been receiving, or girls in that category been receiving, and are they enough?
Well, as I mentioned, Bethlehem Queer started as an Instagram account that served as the only online platform for the LGBT community members of Palestine to come together. At first, we only shared stories, jokes, we listened to each other's concerns. But during the pandemic, our young queer female followers, they started sending us reports of increased emotional and psychological violence and stress, in addition to, increased physical violence. And there's a concerning lack of services to support our young Palestinian LGBT women. And the already existing services during the pandemic were made inaccessible. So the peer support that was the only source of emotional support for a lot of these young girls was also reduced due to quarantine. So that reduced peer support and that lack of services were amplifying the emotional stress of the pandemic. That's already too much. So after we got the Resilience Fund over the past few months, we were able to hire a psychologist and designate online support groups for those young queer female followers. At the beginning, and especially due to the fact that we're in Palestine, the implementation process was very challenging because we had to take extra security measures to ensure the safety of these women, because a lot of these girls were already facing death threats from family members. So being caught in the middle of an online support group for the LGBT community would have put their lives in danger. So some of the security measures we took is that we opened an application process, and the participants were chosen very carefully. Two, the participants could not join with their real names. Everyone had to use nicknames. Three, we could not open our cameras, which is very unpleasant. With the fund, we were able to do whatever we could with whatever we had. We had a professional psychologist who was able to offer that amazing safe space for the followers to feel safe enough to share. And I'm not gonna lie, at first it was hard. It was hard to open up and warm up to each other and share. However, now we're 7 meetings in, and I think it's turning into a very beautiful, one-of-a-kind space that we're all proud of.
I just wanted to say it's very nice to hear that the Global Resilience Fund is transforming the work you're doing. And we've been hearing a lot of stories like that from different girls groups across the world that we are supporting with the fund. Serenzea, you're a young woman's activist. You're hearing all what is coming from the conversation from our colleagues here. And I'm sure you are also dealing with your own unique challenges in Mongolia. So I want to know what support you've been receiving. Is it enough? And how do you think we can show up, funders can show up for girls? What more can they do?
Thank you. So it's very important to see that how pandemic is revealed the existing system that is broken. So I want to just mention that in Mongolian context, like working frontliners, like a young feminist activist, Mongolia is post-socialist country. We're still transitioning the period from nomadic culture to the urbanization, and from socialist to democracy. So we are shifting the big two transitions, and it's like huge impact on women and girls, a lot of responsibilities on our shoulder. People say that because of the pandemic, everything is come up, but actually it's happening before the pandemic, and young women and girls activists, the many decades, they're still rising their issues. Pandemic, it exacerbates the current system. For example, in Beautiful Hearts, many their services, especially mental health services and child sexual abuse and domestic violence, but specifically intimate partner violence alarmingly increased. Also, from the local NGO side, their providing service to the those survivors is also increased. So what I want to say is that in this particular time, the frontliners, their work is doubled.
Daniela, how easy is Is it for young women to get support in your region?
It is indeed very difficult. The services are very limited. I can recall one other organization that gives that kind of support to LGBT women in Palestine. So it was extremely challenging to figure out how we're going to go about this because we did not have any references. How can we make this as safe as possible? How can we make this as productive as possible? And how can we keep the context in mind while working? I needed someone to email or share my questions and my concerns with, but I felt completely on my own. So it was extremely challenging at first. But when we managed to create that safe space, we started noticing that we were able to answer all these questions together. How can we make this safe for all of us? How can we make sure no one gets hurt in this process?
All the way from Mongolia, how is it accessing funding or support, Serenze?
We received the fund, but comparing with the other donor organizations, like it's kind of flexible. Usually the donor organizations provide so much documents, requires many documents, very crucial. And I witnessed to see their how they will quickly have like response quickly in terms of the pandemic.
Let's go to Tere to throw light on the context of girls in Sierra Leone, but also particularly pay attention to funding in a crisis period for girls. What could have helped or can help now?
So at Feminist United Sierra Leone and Allies, currently we're undertaking a safe space project, which is an idea to basically create a platform for sexual and gender-based violence victims, to create like a safe platform where they can share their experiences, where we can provide psychosocial support for them within their community. So basically, it's more about partnering with community members so they understand the essence of the fight against the sexual and gender-based violence. So in Sierra Leone, we have a history with having an increased number of violence against women during emergencies. So I take you back in 2014 when we had the Ebola crisis. Schools were caused to close down. A lot of reports later showed that, a lot of girls became pregnant, and, it became very difficult for these girls to go back to school. And I can also emphasize on the issue of stigmatization that was here. With that history and with women and girls positioning mostly as caregivers in Sierra Leone, we said we can do something. We can take a community-driven approach wherein we'd be able to organize community members to continue to sensitize against the sexual and gender-based violence, and also to discourage, the culture of silence within these communities, and, charge community stakeholders to see the need to protect girls within their communities during this time. Because also, like Ebola, when the COVID-19 struck here, the schools were closed. So here, even in 2019, we had the president, who happened to declare a state of emergency against the issue of rape and sexual and gender-based violence in Sierra Leone. But then what do we continue to see? We continue to see high cases being reported. So at some point in time, we really want to take the community-driven approach, go into the communities, try to partner with community stakeholders for them to work with NGOs, local NGOs like us, for us to bring the issue of violence against women and girls to an end.
From the context of Ebola to Corona, it is no secret that whenever the world is faced with crisis, we suffer the most as women and girls. Can you say we now have enough support in Sierra Leone?
We benefited from the Global Resilience Fund to push our desire to reach into these communities and preach against the sexual and gender-based violence, which is inherently being perpetrated within different communities. We're grateful for the support And also there are a couple of young organizations like ours who are going into communities to do similar works, with little or no funding. So that, I think, it's something that should, captivate funders, because with more resources, with more capacity to actually spread our wings, that is how we're going to translate the same vision in different communities, especially in the rural settings where sexual and gender-based cases go unreported. Our work is, being done in Freetown, which is the capital city, but part of our bigger picture of spreading the vision is to see that we take it further into communities with more resources. And also for us, as a way to support the government, we had actually launched a survey because we cared to know which set of people were more affected and how do we have funders, government stakeholders, or goodwill ambassadors to come to their aid. So part of the survey we conducted captured market women as one of the worst affected here in Sierra Leone. So these market women, they have their families, they have their children who they have to go back to and care for. So at the end of the day, we pleaded with funders to help these women, with loans, because part of the challenges they are experiencing during this time is that, they buy the goods at higher prices, and, the sales turnouts can be very, very low.
Thank you so much. I mean, all the explanation from all of you is a clear example of how girls, young women have been showing up in the wake of this crisis. This session is really going to focus on what our feminist future look like and what does the world look like for girls activists and allies moving forward as we live through this pandemic. So I will start with Kenya.
First of all, I would say one of the things that funders should invest in is encouraging more on technology capacity building, bring up a community, a nation of informed and competent girls who are able to make informed choices about their lives and bring about transformative change in their communities. And that is through giving them knowledge, being practical with them, not just the theory part. I think education is the equalizer. That is through giving the right information to girls. So yes, having informed girls.
Thank you so much. Education is indeed the equalizer. And you are saying that you want more informed and capable girls. That's what your feminist future look like. For you, Sadiana, what does this future look like?
If I may, there's something that Sarah and Zaya mentioned. When you said that frontliners' work has doubled, it's like it hit me. There's the lack of protection for activists and actually the threat on their human security. If I may just use this platform to highlight that we need to re-strategize about how we show up regarding protecting women and girls who are really putting their physical and their human security at risk for the sake of the collective struggle. Girls have been advocating a lot for protection through legal reforms, and this is something that is worthy of more attention on how probably we can impose more accountability mechanisms on governments, on stakeholders, and different actors. Regarding the support, I'd like to just emphasize that the monetary aspect is always crucial. It is vital for the sustainability of our work, but at the same time, I think we're in a critical moment of history where we need to look beyond that. I think we need to put more focus on how we have our intergenerational support and solidarity, and it's like passing the torch. I'm speaking about donors and in this specific situation. I don't know if they overlook or it's not in their consciousness that it is not just gender equality, but a feminist world where we have access to opportunities, to options. Girls don't have options. They are dictated what they should say, how they should look, what they should feel. everything since the day they are born to the day they become girls and then women. They are told what to be and what not to be. And when we talk about also the past funding aspect of support, I would say Women for Girls has been doing an extraordinary work with their strategic framework that is really rooted on the needs of girls. It's grounded in their realities. And for someone like me coming from this specific region of the world, this is not something that we're used to. We're used to bilateral and multilateral funders who put so much money. And if we are so lucky, they have gender departments under their institutions who supervise the implementation of the projects, of the objectives, So it's a very rigid framework. How about the voices of women? How about actually talking to activists, learning, listening? And it was refreshing to be part of the strategic framework team coming from different areas of the globe to just highlight what our realities are and what we need in terms of support. The last thing, there's something very intimidating about political feminism programs. We want to depoliticize movements. We want to depoliticize the work that we're doing. Let's talk about the social aspect of how girls are affected, and they cannot be separated. The social is political all the time. So let's talk to girls about political feminists. Put some faith into that vision, if I may say. And girls are really powerful. And that's the feminist world that I really dream about and work to co-create.
That is really, really amazing. Feminist funding should be about creating more access to opportunity, but not only opportunity, to options. Let's go to Serenzaya from Mongolia. What does this feminist world looks like for you, and how can funders show up more?
My feminist future and dream looks like to creating nomadic feminist culture and discourse, creating our context. It's very crucial. How can we transform at each region, and each context is very crucial. So creating nomadic feminist discourses, challenging that power, and how we are challenging the power imbalance.
Thank you so much. Nomadic feminist culture and challenging power imbalance. The best person to call now is Tere. She is here challenging all those power structures that are oppressing women and girls in Sierra Leone. What's your view about your feminist world?
My view, to be sincere, about a feminist world is one in which the feminism ideology works in our very systems. And this means we have to understand the power structure, the power struggle, and what continues to uphold patriarchy as a system. For us as women, it's also a matter of us realizing how we contribute to sustaining the system which seeks to deprive equality of both sexes. And also, I desire to see feminist leadership, not just women leadership, people who represent us on different leadership platforms. It can be legislative, executive, or the judiciary. So you have people who care to uphold the concept of equality and would go extra mile to ensure that we break any barrier that seeks to militate against equality of both sexes or deprive one sex against the other. So I strongly believe that this is very possible, but it means we have to take a pause to look inwards as to what are we getting right and what are we not getting right.
Thank you so much, Tere. Wherever we have feminist leaders, we will not have problem with girls or people in the LGTB community. And I'm so ashamed that the part of the world I am coming from, this is still a taboo discussion. Their rights and freedom and dignity is not fully upheld. And so, Magna, please, what does this feminist future looks like for people in that community?
First of all, I'm really grateful for the Resilience Fund, because of that fund we were able to set up the shelter and have helped dozens of people and we also helped other people to move out. We hired therapists. We have a right-wing government, and they are very conservative. Even now, they have just filed a petition against same-sex marriage, and they are not showing up, just to delay the judicial proceedings. There are honor killings, there are rapes going on. So it was necessary at that time to have a safe space, and because of resilience fund, we were able to set up that safe space, and we were able to help a lot of people across the country. For me and for the community, the feminist future is having freedom to live your life without any fear, because I have seen the worst of things. I have seen people crying on calls, and therapists informing me when we were writing reports. So equality for everyone, including queer people and women coming together, and fighting patriarchal order. We have seen worse things last year. There was massive trolling because of some YouTuber, and even now rape cases are going on, and the state machinery, protects the rapists. That's a huge problem that we are, now noticing. So there is no fear in the minds of criminals, as per now. With the current regime, I think for us, feminist future looks like a government that is supportive of everyone, not favoring criminals or rapists, and having freedom to live, to survive, to live fearlessly, and to be safe. I am very grateful for the fund. Now, sometimes I just think if we wouldn't have done a fundraiser, and then we haven't applied for it, I don't know how we will be helping all these people. So for us, a future looks like when you have freedom to educate yourself, to live on your own terms, to have economic freedom. And the wage gap is also visible among the queer community. A lot of queer people get underpaid. So these are the issues that I think should be covered.
Thank you so much, Magna, and know that the sisterhood, all of us across the world, we're here standing as sisters with you all. And thank you so much for your courage and for sharing that. Your feminist world is to live in freedom. Feminists are freedom fighters. Isn't that why we're here? This is why we live. This is what we do. Finally, Daniela, what's your views about this? And let's wrap it up with you.
For me, a feminist reality is a reality where no one is told how to be or who to be, where women or LGBT individuals don't have to seek safe spaces to feel like they belong or that they matter or that their voice is worth hearing, where women don't have to seek safe spaces to be respected. These things are right for every individual, regardless of their gender, sexuality, economic background, and or physical disabilities. A feminist reality is a reality where everyone is not only accepted, but also celebrated.
Thank you so much. Everyone is not only accepted, but also celebrated. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us in this panel discussion. You are all exceptional leaders and girl experts who are leading great work in the different regions you work in. Issues affecting girls do not stop because of crisis, and it's the same way girls organizing across the world haven't stopped because of the crisis. Girls have proven over and again that they can, they will, and they are doing it. And this panel is a clear representation of how girls have been doing this. I want to say thank you to the panelists and also thank you to our audience. If you're a girl-led group, girl collective, girl ally organizations, and would like to connect further to other activists in your region and apply for funding opportunity, we invite you to register for the WIF and for Girls Fund database. We accept applications from diverse groups of girls across the world, including girls under 18, running formal or informal initiatives, including unregistered groups and groups without bank accounts. That's how cool we are. We are also giving funds to collectives led by girls and those in partnership with young women and non-binary people under 30, including cis girls, trans girls, intersex and non-binary youth, gender non-conforming youth, gender queer youth, and any girl identified youth. Girl Allies organization and collectives led by intergenerational groups of women that have a track record of working with girls in ways that shifts power. You can also be an organization or collective who demonstrate active participatory leadership models that include girls and young women in decision making. Our funding windows is for you. You can find out more about the work we do and about all of this and be part of it by visiting our website, www.wearepurposeful.org. I thank you all for taking the time to listen to this panel discussion. Happy International Women's Day to all of us, and goodbye.